Jean-Claude Van Damme was one of the biggest action stars of the 80s and 90s, a childhood hero in my life who inspired my journey into acting and production. Today is a special day as we welcome back Hollywood hairstylist and legend Emanuel Millar, who worked directly with Jean-Claude on 4 movies: Sudden Death, The Quest, Maximum Risk, and Double Team. Super excited, guys. Let's do it.
I see. I got your attention.
Mr. Emanuel, thank you again, sir, and welcome back. In your memoir, The Kindest Cut, Volume 1, you devoted a few chapters to your experiences working with Jean-Claude. Sudden Death was the first movie you worked on. You get the call, you make your way to Pittsburgh. Tell us what happened.
Yes, it was. First of all, Chris, thank you for having me back. I'm thoroughly enjoying talking about my book, The Kindest Cut. I was told to go sit in an office and wait. I had just been introduced to Zoltan Ellick, Jean-Claude's makeup artist, who already had done 5 movies. And Zoltan is an Academy Award-winning brilliant makeup man who won an Academy Award for The Mask with Eric Stoltz. And Zoltan was called out of the office, and I was told to sit in this office. And all of a sudden, I got a feeling that I was being talked about. I had got an intuitive feeling that something is not right, that people were talking about me. So I got up and stepped out of the office, and when I turned my head to the right, I saw Jean-Claude Van Damme, Zoltan Ellick, Peter Hyams, the director, and Moishe Diamant, the producer. And at the moment that they saw me peek around the corner, they all turned their head at the same time and gave me a look, and it wasn't a pleasant look. So I stepped back into the office. A little while later, Zoltan came in, and I said, "Is everything okay?" And he said, "Well, they asked me if I knew who you were," and I said, "No, I've never met him." And he said, "So they're concerned for Jean-Claude." And I said, "Well, why don't I go say something?" He said, "I wouldn't if I were you." And when somebody tells me that, I just think I'm a grown man. I can take care of myself. So I stepped back. I stepped out of the office once again. And when I turned the corner, I saw Peter Hyams. It was just Peter walking away. So I said, "Excuse me, Peter." And he turned around, and I think he was a little surprised to see me. And I said, "Is everything okay?" And Peter said, "I don't know who the fuck you are. And neither does my actor." And I said, I calmly said, "Why don't I do this? Why don't I have my wife fax you my resume directly? And in a little while, Jean-Claude has an appointment to have his hair colored. And then we have the makeup test." And I said, once that takes place and I cut his hair and do it, I said, "If you're not happy, or if he's not happy," I said, "send me home." And he said, "That's fair enough." And Peter just turned and walked away. Jean-Claude would not speak to me. He would not almost acknowledge me as being there. The whole time I was cutting his hair, at one point, he turned to, I was telling Jean-Claude, "You're a fireman. I want to make you look like a handsome fireman who has a nice styled haircut, but not as poofy as some of the other hairstyles I've seen that you have, or blow-dried look." And he said, Jean-Claude said to Zoltan, not to me, he said, "Zoltan, this guy knows what he's doing." So when I finished his hair and we stepped out on stage for the makeup test to be filmed, Peter said to Jean-Claude, "Jean-Claude, are you okay?" And Jean-Claude gave him the 2 thumbs up. He said, yeah, I'm good." And they never said a word to me. Never said anything of "he looks good" or "good job" or anything.
This was definitely a big deal for Jean-Claude. To me, Sudden Death was peak Van Damme. Time Cop may have been more successful financially, but Sudden Death just felt bigger. It was his Die Hard. I mean, he was a regular guy, wrong place at the wrong time. Even as a kid, watching it in the theater, when we see Jean-Claude, his character in full, stepping out of his car, he's there to pick up his kids. He looked like an everyday guy, in the best way possible. So what you created, it was a perfect look. As a fan, it was clear. This wasn't, it wasn't about Jean-Claude, the martial artist or model. This was a movie that just happened to have Jean-Claude in it. And this being your first action movie, was the process for you any different working with stunt guys and the other co-stars, keeping that continuity?
Even though I was called to do Jean-Claude Van Damme specifically, I usually like to do all the other actors if I'm able to, or have many other actors, to keep the look of the film consistent. It frustrates me if I'm just doing one actor and another hairdresser, it doesn't get the look or the design that I'm trying to go for.
Was the rest of the shoot, did it go smooth?
It had been maybe a few weeks of working with Jean-Claude. He spoke mostly to Zoltan, not to me very much, but having heard that he could be difficult, I'd still not saw that side. But one morning he came in and he looked rough. It looked like he had a bad night's sleep. His hair was sticking up.
I'm having a real bad day.
And after sitting in Zoltan's chair, maybe no less than a minute, he starts to snap at Zoltan. Zoltan, you're an old man. I need somebody young. Why are you taking so long? And so he sat in my chair, and I did what I usually did. I took my spray bottle and I started to wet his hair because I was going to blow to try to get some of the sleep head off of it. And all of a sudden he jumps out of my chair and he just says, "Do it on set." He said, you'll finish on set. And he just walked out. Zoltan looked at me and said, one day your day is going to come. And I said, "No, it won't, Zoltan." I don't let anybody speak to me that way. So sure enough, by the time I got to set, Jean-Claude was sitting there, and it was a day when the stadium was full, almost with 5,000 extras. It was going to be the big game day. They had made an announcement. The production made an announcement in Pittsburgh that there would be free food and hot dogs. But he was sitting in his chair up against the concrete wall, and he said, "Manny," he said, "do my hair." And I said, "You apologize to me." And he looked at me. I said, "I did not appreciate you speaking that way." He said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just very nervous today. All these people." And he did apologize, and I did his hair, and he fixed it. But I just wanted him to know, even if that was the last time I worked with him or he fired me on the spot, you're not going to speak to me that way. If you're having a rough day, I can be here for you. I can hold your hand, or you can cry on my shoulder, or you can tell me you're nervous, but you're not going to yell at me the way I saw him do that with Zoltan. I didn't want to see Jean-Claude talk to him that way, and neither did I ever want him to speak to me that way again.
Wow. Well, you stood up for yourself, and that's awesome. I'm sorry that happened. I know that we can all have our days, but most of the time there's always a better way to handle it. There's always a better choice that we can make. So, in the 90s, that was when I started to hear, things about Jean-Claude, rumors. But my thought process, especially when it came to my heroes, I would purposely ignore or avoid any real life information unless it came from the actual person. I was so focused on my dream, my passion for movies, and that's what made it easy to focus on the story or the character to keep me inspired. So I really knew nothing about Jean-Claude the man or his life, behind the scenes until he released his reality show Behind Closed Doors in 2011. And on that show, he did talk a lot about the good and bad, confirming that there was another side to him at times, choices that were made. But this, going back to your experience, this was just the beginning for you, right? Sudden death, you wrap, and then you're off to Thailand for the quest. Location-wise, what was that like?
We were in Thailand the entire time. There was no shooting elsewhere. It wasn't on a stage in LA and we'll go. No, the entire 4.5, almost 5 months, we would be in Thailand, and we were in Mae Hong Son and Bangkok and Phuket and Hue Hin, and it was amazing. It was magical. I still have such a fondness for the Thai people that I met and worked with, and the Thai culture. I loved it. I felt like I was a blessed experience that God had given me. Thank you, Jean-Claude.
Wow. I can't even imagine. I mean, The Quest was classic Van Damme, showcasing all kinds of martial arts talent. Every fighter in that movie was amazing. And for the most part, Jean-Claude, you gave him a shaved look, which fit the character perfectly. Great cast all around. I love the music in that movie very much. And in your memoir, there's the epic photo with you and Roger Moore on set, James Bond himself. Now, everything I've heard about Roger has been extremely positive. He's a super gentleman. Am I right?
Roger could not have been more lovely to me. In fact, one of the most memorable things in Thailand was Roger threw a dinner party. The hotel he was staying at, I think it was the Banyan Tree, set up tables for him with white linen. It was beautiful on the beach. And Roger, I don't think I remember him sitting down once. He just went around the tables. Maybe there were 20 people, 15 or 20 people, maybe even a little bit more. And he came up to me and he said, "Emanuel, are you okay?" I said, "Well, I'm more of a vegetarian. I do eat fish." And once he found that out, he ordered more fish and more vegetables for me. And I thought, this is why this man is who he is.
Dang, it's so crazy to hear all these stories, behind the scenes. So I'm literally, reliving my teens during this interview. So thank you again for sharing. Watching the movie, seeing so many people, it looked like you had a lot of fun. Obviously, it was a lot of work. Were there any other standout moments that come to mind?
One of the standout moments was one day, Jean-Claude, he was going to have a big fight with Abdel. And Jean-Claude, in his direction, was having trouble. It felt like he was having trouble communicating with Abdel. And Abdel wasn't getting what he was saying. He wasn't understanding. So after finally more than a few takes, and Jean-Claude possibly felt how frustrated the crowd was getting and how frustrated Abdel was getting. All of a sudden, Jean-Claude yells out, "The man has a dick and balls like you and me." And I looked around the crowd, and I could see on the looks of most people's faces, what does that mean? And what does that mean? And I wanted to be his interpreter at that point and say, what he's trying to say is, he's only human. He's trying his best. It felt like Jean-Claude was frustrated that Abdel wasn't getting his direction, and having a whole crowd watch of maybe possibly 100 or 200 extras, the crew. It was hot that day. It's hot in Thailand. I think just a combination of everything. Jean-Claude felt that, again, as a director, he needed to say something, but that's what came out of his mouth.
I've seen every Van Damme movie, 100 times or more. And there is one scene in The Quest that I just do not like, that I cringe every time I watch it. And it's at the very end. Jean-Claude wins the tournament. He gets the girl. He sacrifices the golden dragon. And, it's with him and Janet Gunn. At the last shot, he puts his arm around her and they just kind of walk off frame. I just thought, with the subtle buildup that we had throughout the film, the little moments that they shared, I thought it was awesome. It was very different, for a Van Damme movie. So I really liked it. And then at the end, it's just kind of like, all right, buddy, let's go. Movie's over. I just really felt like that should have been executed a little bit different. I felt cheated. I really would have loved to have seen, something else, a different exchange, a different look. Still keep it subtle. But I don't know whether it was an acting choice or a directing choice. That shot wasn't for me. And I do love the movie overall.
One thing that I noticed, I rarely saw Jean-Claude sit with his actors, the actors like Jack McGee, Roger Moore, Janet Gunn. When it came to the fighters, Jean-Claude seemed to relate to them more. And so rarely did usually you see a leading man have some relationship, some kind of relationship with their leading lady, because they have to have some sort of chemistry. But I never saw that. And going into sudden death, to Maximum Risk, it felt like the same thing, that with Natasha Henstridge, there was no relationship off camera between them.
Natasha Henstridge is out of this world, gorgeous, so beautiful. She's a supermodel. Maximum Risk, that was 1996. I was 15. And, whenever I would watch a Van Damme movie or any movie really that I wanted to see, I always went twice. I would go in the morning, 9, 10 a.m. I'm just this kid by himself in the theater. And then I would go back again later that day with my dad or with friends, and I'd watch it again. This time, it was homework. I was studying, I was dreaming, I was learning. And, when Natasha and Van Damme, first meet, they're at that Bohemia location. She kind of, pushes him into this elevator, and, there's a really good close-up of her face. And she lit up the screen.
I'll see you as soon as I get off, all right? Don't even think about going to sleep. We got a lot of catching up to do.
She was definitely, one of the most prettiest women I had ever seen. And that's actually my favorite moment in Maximum Risk because of Natasha, because of Jean-Claude's presence, his look, his hair, his tone, everything fell into place in that sequence for me. And now after meeting you, it's even more inspiring to know all these little details that go into making a movie, making a character. So, congrats again. Everyone looked great in that movie. Compared to The Quest, the action and the fighting was less, but they were good. The sauna scene was probably the most popular. Any stories from that day on set?
Yes, again, he was talking to Zoltan. He said, Zoltan, when I do this fight, he said, I want it to be real. He said, I'm not going to wear any underwear and I'll just have a towel around me. So he said he's going to do it real. Well, he gets on set and he just has a towel wrapped around him. And the first time with the camera facing, Jean-Claude does a kick to the camera. And sure enough, dick and balls come flying at you. So after that, Jean-Claude put on a little, he said, yeah, he even agreed that was a little too much. He put on a little nude, probably bikini, male bikini brief to just contain everything. And then he continued with the fight. But I commend him for wanting to be as real as possible, but it just didn't work with the way that he would kick up his leg and the towel open.
That's so funny. Oh man, Emanuel, your life has been incredible. All the projects you've worked on, the people, the places. Natasha Henstridge, Roger Moore. It's amazing. It's amazing. You worked on Maximum Risk, and then, a few months later, you're working on Double Team. Looking back, you gave Jean-Claude such a distinct look, with his hair being completely different in each of these movies, which I, super appreciate even more now.
Again, Chris, you have a very good eye in your senses, because I really thought, I'm just going to have fun with this. If I've given him 4 different looks on movies, I'm going to do a little Caesar cut on him. And I did. Once again, I was a personal to Jean-Claude, but I was the head of the department. But Dennis Rodman, interesting enough, I knew who he was. I'd heard of him. They wanted different colored hair on him. Every time you see him, red spots or orange spots or tiger or green. So I went out and bought spray paint hair colors and that you can spray on. And I made different decals. And what was funny about Mickey Rourke, I was actually looking forward to working with Mickey, and I heard that I heard rumors that he could be tough, but Mickey sat down and I cut his hair and he was really nice. I actually really liked working with him. He was always polite to me, thankful, loved the way I did his hair. And, but I thought it was interesting how afraid people were of him. And they thought, well, Emanuel will deal with him, and whatever the outcome is, it's on him, not on me. But again, I found Mickey to be actually one of the highlights of working on Double Team.
Oh yeah, Mickey's a legend. His performance was definitely my favorite. He was the perfect villain. It was incredible to see him, go head to head with Jean-Claude, especially since I only knew Mickey from like Angel Heart and 9.5 Weeks. It was really cool to see him, do the fight stuff. It was new. And it was also cool to see Jean-Claude doing some new stuff as well. The fight scenes in Double Team, were very different. Even though I was young, the choreography and the movements, I had more of an Asian martial arts vibe, watching it. And after reading your memoir, it all made sense when you shared the story about Jackie Chan and his stunt team. They were on the film, and Jackie Chan himself visited the set.
There was one night where Jackie Chan came visiting the set, and I'd heard of Jackie Chan, but to watch the way these stunt guys and a lot of people on the set hailed him as if, I can't even, Tom Hanks or Bill Murray, somebody really famous. And I thought, oh wow, these guys really look up to him. And we were, Jean-Claude briefly introduced us and shook his hand. I think he even, in a very polite way, he wore the fame, he wore the accolades very nicely. He was polite and kind, but they definitely hailed him, probably rightly so.
Epic, so epic. Mr. Emanuel, thank you again, sir, for your time, for your support. I really, really appreciate it. This has been an amazing interview. Jean-Claude, if you're watching and would like to share some of your stories, you are more than welcome, sir. It would be an honor. Please feel free to contact me at any time. Thank you, Mr. Emanuel. Guys, his memoir, The Kindest Cut, Intuitive Life Lessons Learned by a Hollywood Hairstylist, Volume 1, Volume 2, available now on all major platforms. I will put links in the description. Thank you for watching, thank you for believing, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.